I love this YouTube hobby because I get to listen to new music, and sometimes it reveals and sometimes it reflects. So when it reveals, it tells me about life experiences that are not my own, life experiences to which I can't really relate on any sort of lived way, but I can relate to artistically, sort of through compassion. I often bring up this quote from Justin Hunt when I review rap albums: "I'm not in a position to properly contextualize," but then other times, and this has been happening a lot lately, Mount Erie, Tim Heidecker, I listen to music that reflects my own life experience, and I am in a position to properly contextualize. Perhaps a uniquely good position to properly contextualize. So that's the way that I'm coming to this album, Patterns in Repeat by Laura Marling. Because one thing I can relate to, it's being a super pale, middle-aged, enthusiastic, recent parent of a baby. Check, check, and check. Speaking of checking, as always, when I record out here, I have my baby monitor. I make sure that my 2-year-old is not awake. Sometimes people say, "Would you show the baby?" No, she can't. She can't consent. So that's what you get to see. Just imagine a little baby in a sleep sack, okay? That's what it looks like. Now listen, it's evident how good this album is just from its songwriting, its performance, whether or not you have kids, right? Whether or not you've had this experience. But there is definitely that extra layer that you can get, that extra layer of understanding you can get if you've had this lived experience. So I want to share that with you, sort of my experience with it, how I think it does this really well, while also talking about the album. And what I love about this is that, first of all, there's just not enough albums about parenthood. There just aren't. There's a lot of albums about love and falling in love and falling out of love and all that, but parenting albums, there aren't that many. And I'll maybe get into why later. But this album does an amazing job of pairing two seemingly contradictory emotional reactions to parenthood that are not actually contradictory. They are linked. Part 1, unambiguous joy. The unambiguous joy and purpose that transcends all other joys and all other sense of purpose. That's what happens when you have a baby. People talk about it, it's a cliche, but it's true. That's what happens. It's like, oh, this is what I'm here for. Okay, now I get it. Everything else really actually doesn't matter. Not even this video. Not even being out here on the porch talking to you thousands of people. But beyond that, overt, clear to see, easy to read, unambiguous joy, there is underneath this mysterious, ambiguous feeling that you have taken your definitive place in the infinite passage of humanity, in which you are going to be a part of a cycle that has existed for generations and will continue to exist. And your place in that cycle will either be as a continuation, as a disruptor, as a creator of a new cycle, as an ender of an old one. You don't quite know. It is so hard to place. It is such an odd feeling when you give birth and you realize that a human being is going to say the word father and your face is going to be the one that pops into their head. That's a mysterious feeling. And that's why this album, to me, is so powerfully good. Because it is simultaneously on the nose. I love having a baby. I love you so much. A baby shark, do. And then the rest of it is like, what the hell is she singing about? What does she mean? What is a pattern in repeat? Thank you for auditing the Always Positive New Music Review Show, hosted by a French professor. I don't do sponsorships, but I do preach. My dad was a preacher. When I say father, I think of that man. And I need to say one thing. The magic of childbirth is that it teaches you the absolute crucial importance of free, open access to abortion. That might sound, I don't know, contradictory, because when you have a baby, it's the most beautiful feeling, and you can't possibly imagine a better feeling in the world. There's something so grotesque about being in that space and knowing that those doctors are not respected, that those women are not respected, that their choices are not respected, that this, the greatest thing you can possibly do, can be forced onto you. So listening to this album post-Roe, listening to this album post Project 2025 as it begins to be enacted, is sort of an F, like I kind of say F you. Like I get angry at it. I get angry at myself for just, anyways. Because, anyways, I just keep fighting. I don't listen. I know I'm getting preachy, but keep fighting. You have to fight for a woman's right to choose. You just have to. You cannot love children and love babies, in my opinion, and love mothers and not fight for choice. Okay, I'm done with that now. If you're a parent out there and you've had that feeling too, let me know. Because I legitimately felt that. I legitimately felt, oh my God, I feel so bad for women who are forced here and doctors who are not free to give the care that they need to give. What kind of world are we living in? Which kind of ties into one of my larger theories that I talk a lot about on this channel. You know, I'm a pro-baby channel. I love being a dad. It's a great thing. But like, I'm also pro-not child. You know, like that's the world that we should live in. If you want kids, you should really have them. If you don't, you really, really shouldn't. You know? How complicated is that of a concept to understand? And I think this album gets to that. I think this album supports that position as well. So a side note, don't rush into having kids because you think it will fix yourself or your relationship. It won't. So just a little word of warning. I might have learned that the nice way and the hard way at the same time. So I'm thinking about this life experience thing, and I'm thinking about like great albums that are tied into motherhood. And I'm reminded of a strange time when I was 22 years old, 1998, 1999, right around that time. And it happened to be that was right when I was coming to terms with the fact that I had a misogynist ear, that when I grew up I discounted Heart and Fleetwood Mac and Joni Mitchell, and I thought it was because they were not to my taste, but it was actually probably some kind of deep ingrained misogyny that made me not take women artists as seriously as male artists. So I was sort of trying to overcome that. And there were 3 albums that came out around that time that I listened to at the same time and were all about motherhood. So it's very funny, you know, because it would be another 5 years until I'd have my first child. And like, so let's just talk about them. Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. This album is a lot of things. One of the things that it is a meditation on new motherhood. Why am I doing this? Am I saying that this is the same thing as Patterns and Repeat? No. I'm just trying to celebrate the fact that there have already been some women who have made albums about motherhood, and I think we need to celebrate them more. Madonna's best album, Ray of Light. That's not the actual cover, but I've always thought she looks really hot in that picture, so I've always had that out front. But all right, fine. What are you supposed to do, you know? A man is nothing but a man. I don't know. Whatever it is. Ray of Light, my favorite album of hers, and a lot of it is about motherhood. And then the third one, and this is one you've never heard of probably, Ramona Silver, an underground Boston artist. If you like the Breeders, if you like 90s style music, this is her album called Ultrasound. There's even an ultrasound of her baby in the album cover. And it's this great album all about like this feeling of motherhood and impending motherhood. So that was my, I'll actually include a link to a really good song by Ramona Silver in case you've never heard it. I looked her up online and she's like still making music, like playing like porch parties and stuff. It's awesome. It's awesome. Human beings are just great. So in my mind, this fits into that pantheon of great albums about motherhood. And what's interesting is it's that paradox where you realize the simplicity of life, right? Because once you have a baby, you're like, okay, this is it. Like you thought you had a calling. I thought I had a calling to be a teacher. I thought I had a calling to be an artist. I thought I had a calling to be a creator. I thought I had all these callings, and then you're just like, no, I don't have a calling. I'm supposed to be a parent. And this reflects that joy. But then we get to that complexity, that mystery. And that's what I like about this album is that it's never what. Sorry, I'm getting texts from my from my daughter. We're going to go see Morrissey later in the week, and I gave her a playlist of songs to listen to. She just said, "All the Lazy Dykes" is a crazy title. Song is hard though. All right, I have to turn off my. Sorry. Sorry. I'm just. Maybe you find that charming, maybe not. But like, I'm literally dadding while I'm doing this video, right? Anyways, so that's this. But the thing is, when people talk about the pain of knowing that you are going to be having kids and the ways that ties into the pain you felt as an adult, it can be very dark. It can be a very sort of sad take. You know, one of my favorite authors, who I may or may not have named my daughter after, that was just texting me, is Émile Zola, okay? So Émile Zola is famous for a lot of great things, the Dreyfus Affair, all that. But the main thing that he wrote about was this concept of heredity. He had this expression, fêlure héréditaire, which is basically translated as like hereditary crack, where he tried to show a family and sort of show the ways in which the problems of family are passed on in a repeating pattern, in a repeating cycle. And so one of his most famous books is called The Human Beast, and it's all about this basically serial killer. And he sees it as being because his father and everyone in his family were alcoholics. And even though he's not an alcoholic and he doesn't drink, that crack is just passed on to him, and he can't control his anger and his hatred and all those feelings. Fêlure héréditaire. So that is too pessimistic. It's a very pessimistic take. Obviously, I love Zola, but it's a very pessimistic take. But it does hint at something, which is that feeling that you get when you have kids, that you are going to make another one of you. My 16-year-old daughter, who is texting me, is a lot like me. She will say stuff, and I'll be like, "Whoa!" And she'll say stuff, and it'll remind me of my mom. She'll say stuff. Your kids end up becoming like you, like your parents, like your grandparents. How do these things happen? How does it work? How is it a pattern in repeat? Sometimes my 19-year-old son reminds me so much of my now deceased would-be 84-year-old father that it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. Like, why would you inherit that frustrating trait from him? I eliminated that trait in myself, and you inherited it from him? God damn. This fêlure héréditaire. It's this beautiful and tragic thing about those cycles. And that's the mystery, I think. That's the mystery, is where she's talking about the patterns in repeat. You are going to be the face that they see when they say mother or father, and this gets to that. And I read a quote from her in Vogue magazine where she says this: "Now I have to deal with the tiredness and chaos." I'm going to take a sip of coffee to celebrate that description of new parenthood. Tiredness and chaos, very much. And you hit the next level of the game. You realize you've got a huge responsibility for the rest of your life not to F up. And it makes you think about in what ways things might have been effed up for you or your siblings. So it's all of that. It's something of a cliche, but that's what it is really. Cliche? Cliche, Laura? Now listen, I'm going to give you a pass because you made an amazing piece of art about this cliche. But this is the problem. It's not even a real cliche. There is not enough art about this feeling that she is describing in this quote, which is why this album is urgent and necessary. Okay? Because there's a lot of songs about falling in love. Oh no, I'm talking like Biden now. Listen, I'm not kidding, Jack. There's a lot of songs about falling in love. But there's not a lot of music about this feeling, about how your parents screwed up, how you might screw up your kids. It's a very important thing, and this album does it very, very, very well. Now, let's on a more basic level, if I want to be a music critic and not just a dude talking about parenthood, this album also does another thing, which is it sounds like a great 70s singer-songwriter album, but it doesn't piss me off at all. A lot of great 70s singer-songwriter albums just kind of annoy me. I don't know. There's like a softness to them. There's something about their production. This doesn't do that at all. A lot of modern singers who are sort of imitating 70s singer-songwriters also annoy me with a kind of either natural or forced irony, some kind of forced sarcasm or satire or distance. This doesn't have any of that. It's super earnest without being too earnest, and it's like singer-songwriter folk, but it doesn't have... I have a hard time listening to a whole folk album all the way through. I just do. Just a person and a guitar and the singing, even if it's someone, like back in the day when I was like super into, I don't know, like Mountain Goats or stuff. Even then, like that was too hard for me. I don't know how she does it, but this album threads that line, and I never get tired of listening to just a person singing with a guitar. I think part of the reason why is I think she's the first musician that I know of that employs ninjas. So her string section on this album appears on, I believe, every song, but they are cloaked in the night, and they arrive, and at a certain point you're listening to a song, and then you go, when did they get here? How long have these ninjas been in the room? They're on the ceilings. They're under the floorboards. They're in the walls. Like, where did these strings come from? It is beautifully produced. So let's get to the album. If you like what you see, smash the like bucket, subscribe. If you're new here, every time I ask people to put in the comments AVAA, that stands for awesome videos always, and I will always heart a comment that says that unless I miss it, which I miss it sometimes, but not usually. I usually do it. See if you can catch me. So subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think, do all that stuff, okay? And fight for a women's right to choose, okay? It's obscene. It's obscene that I have to ask you, but I have to ask you. So the first song is called Child of Mine, a cover of the Guns N' Roses song. I get one joke. I actually somewhat suspect that it might be because of this book, Child of Mine. This is a fairly popular book right now. It's about sort of how to best feed your child, which... Hey, here's another commercial. Don't listen to the goddamn leche mafia, okay? If you can't breastfeed, it's okay. Your child will be okay. It does not make you less of a mother, less of a person. It just means you're going to be annoyed as hell because dealing with bottles sucks. It sucks so bad. But that doesn't reflect poorly on you as a parent. It's just nature. Some people are born 7 foot tall. Some people are born 5 foot tall. Some people can't breastfeed. Some people can't breastfeed because of their life. So don't feel bad. It's okay. La Leche Mafia, back off. Fortunately, things are a little bit easier now. So this is a good book that sort of goes into breastfeeding and formula feeding, and it's called Child of Mine. I suspect that's why she came up with that title. I don't know. And it starts right off, right in the mode of her getting ready to record, and you understand the context of the album, that she's recording in her house while her child's there, and her, I don't know, husband, I don't know who she's married to, or if she's married. I have absolutely no idea. I don't even, I have no idea. But you hear her like say no, and then start to record, and it has that intimate feel. Like, the album feels like what I do here, to me. Okay, so look, so she was this way, and now she's that way, which means that she's awake. But if I don't see her arm moving while I look at the monitor, it means I still have some more time. I don't edit my videos, so I don't know how long this is going to be. You tell me how much longer until I wake her up. Just guitar and ethereal sounds in the back, and just these perfect lyrics. You and your dad are dancing in the kitchen. You know, how often have I danced? Just yesterday, I was dancing to You're Going to Need Someone on Your Side by Morrissey. I was dancing with my 2-year-old, you know? This is a very common thing. A very common thing. Dance parties are a very common thing. What a fun, banal image. She could have talked about having crazy sex in a Berlin nightclub bathroom. No, that's not her life. She's describing something just as interesting. Life is slowing down, but it's still bitchin'. The simplicity of that line, it's true. I got myself a rod, but I could break it. My back is still as strong as I can make it. I assume that's about like how to be a parent. You know, there's the rod. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Is that the expression? So she's like thinking about how to be a parent. Plus your mind. So who would rush through this child of mine? So the thing is, every single day after I hit stop on this recording, I go upstairs, or whatever, 3 times a week when I do these videos. And I get to wake up my daughter, and it's like the greatest moment, because she like scrambles up and she looks at me, Poppy, and she has this little stuffed rabbit, and I pretend to feed it, and I pretend to put it on the potty so it goes to the bathroom. We do a whole thing, and like I hug her the first thing in the morning. It's like this great moment, and then every single night I put her to bed, and it's like the greatest thing in the world because I hold her while she falls asleep, and it hurts my bad shoulder because I got arthritis in my shoulder. I've had it for like 15 years. It's terrible, but like whatever. It's just like great feeling. And it's true that there is this push to rush through things, to feel like you need to go faster, to feel like you need to be doing more. And one of the greatest things you can do as a parent is not. There's an amazing, one of the best horror movies of this century came out in 2006. It starred Adam Sandler. It was called Click. And it was the story of a father who figures out a way through some kind of mysterious piece of arcane technology, kind of witchcrafty sort of thing, black magic, figures out a way to speed through his own life so that he can only do the things that interest him. And in so doing, he skips through all of the actual good things that are the little connective moments with your wife, the boring parts with your kid, all of the things that you wish you had more of once your kids are grown up. All those things he skipped through. The weird thing was, and I don't know why, I don't usually go see... I've probably went to the movie theater with my mom a total of 20 times in my life, and I went to go see Click with her, which is weird because I was like almost 30 when that movie came out. And I watched it with her, and it was a weird experience because she was not always the most present mom. She kind of skipped a lot. She was not present for a lot of my life. So it's a pretty fascinating moment because it makes me think. It made me think. It made me think. Like what am I going to be? Am I going to be like the star of this horror movie who like skips through the life? And if you've never seen Click, you really need to watch it. It is an amazing horror movie. It was marketed incorrectly as a comedy, so everyone got all confused. But Uncut Gems has nothing on Click as far as the most depressing Adam Sandler movie. You see I'm talking about the cycles? You know, I'm a very distracted person. I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts. I will sometimes, while watching my kids, listen to podcasts on my headphones or listen to YouTube on my headphones. Am I just hitting skip? Am I fast forwarding? Did I meet Christopher Walken at a Bed Bath & Beyond? And this has a little duet here, I guess, with Buck Meek. That's cool. And then some strings, the ninja strings come in. Where the hell they come from? And then we get that expression, long nights, fast days. And this is what is super special is that I had kids too young. 27 and 30. So just too young. Too young. I was too young. But the nice part is, after the reason that was too young, which was unsuccessful marriage, that was psychological terror, I then was able to have enough time for those kids to grow up, and then I got remarried, and then I was still young enough to have 2 more kids. So like that's part of why I'm such a happy human being, because it's the worst feeling knowing that your kids are growing up and that there's not going to be any more, I don't know, parent-teacher conferences. There's not going to be any more art exhibits at the library with your kids' drawings. You know, like there's not going to be any more nights where you hold on to your baby while she falls asleep. Like, that's done. That part of your life is done. Long nights, fast days. It really is. It really is how it works, that everything goes fast and slow at the same time. And she just described this as being the first song that she'd written in a long time, and that she just realized that she could make this album. And oh my God, it talks about wanting to protect your child in their dreams. I got, in the extremely off chance that Laura Marling is watching this, as a parent of babies who's also a parent of teenagers, you can't protect your kids. It's the worst thing. It is the worst thing. Because they eventually grow up and they go out into the world. You're just okay. Next song is called Patterns. The whole thing's funny because I have a brother who for some reason has picked up the verbal trait of using the word patterns all the time. So like, if he's asking what's the plan, he says what's the pattern, and when he says I have to figure out the patterns, like, that's the way that he communicates. It's not bad. It's pretty interesting terminology, actually, but it's just specific to one person in my life. Anyways, muted guitar becomes faster. This is the mystery of the album. We start off super on the nose with "Oh, ho, 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 sweet child of mine." Right? Starts off with that. And now we're in this weird world about a ballerina with squared toes. and like maybe the sameness of parenthood, and maybe like the idea that like a ballerina who becomes a mom has abandoned her dream, her focus, her calling to do something that maybe seems more banal. Maybe that's what that is. This pattern of this pattern in repeat. That's the whole thing. Can begin. This pattern in repeat can begin. This pattern in repeat can begin. If it's a pattern, it means it's already existing, so it can't begin. So that's the thing about this whole problem, is that we are all, as parents and children, in a pattern that is repeating and starting always, always. And the way she describes it, to have your children, your flock of birds, your branch among the wood. Perfect way of describing it, because when you have kids, it's the most special thing in the whole world, but also it is the most boring thing that is literally the only reason that we're all here. Like, oh, whip-de-doo, you did the thing that termites do. You reproduced. Compliments to the chef, right? Like, come on. It's what everyone does. It's just a branch among the woods. See all those trees back there? It's just one little branch. That's what you are, in a whole wood. Again, the ninja strings pop in. This time there's like a low cello here. It's beautiful. Talk about the childbirth, arch my back, and from the black you're born. That's the other weird thing, is when you have kids, I'm just going to talk about this. When you have kids, something exists now. Like the whole human experience now exists because you know what you had to do to get the baby, but then it's there. Like everything in human existence that can be felt and thought of by a human being, all those memories, actions, decisions, regrets, joys, all those things just came into existence. You made that thing come into existence. You made a termite. Then she sings up high and it's gorgeous. Your girl. What is going on with this album? Great singing with some small minor notes. I couldn't figure this out. It's like, I'll always be your girl. Is this a love song to someone who broke up? Is this a song of a widow? Is this a divorce song? I needed to figure it out. I looked it up and, okay, it's actually that whole question of like, how do you feel about your own parents? This feels like it's a woman trying to figure out how she feels about how her father raised her as a girl. Not easy. I got 3 daughters. You got to do a lot of work. You got to do a lot of work to make sure that you are not perpetuating cycles of misogyny and patriarchy on your daughters. It's a lot of work, and maybe this is a song about how that kind of didn't work. I was trying to play a boys game, pawn inside a pornscape. I don't know. It's an interesting theme. It's that mystery, and that's what I'm saying. I cannot give you a definitive deciphering of the patterns in repeat. Of the 2 aspects of this album, I can give you a definitive description of the joys of parenthood. I cannot give you a definitive description of the ambiguity of the hereditary crack that she is describing. I watched her perform this on YouTube. You can watch her play this in Edinburgh in Edinburgh in 2021, and it's just her and a guitar. Holy cow, she's a virtuoso. How do you play this song and sing it at the same time? I mean, I knew that I was certain that she played the song and sang the song, but she amazing. And I love the sound of the frets you hear here. No one's gonna love you like I can. It's funny because it starts off with you took off your clothes in a bar by the road, and so you think it's about a stripper, but then as it goes on, it's clear it's about the daughter. It's about the girl that, when you have like a little baby, you just take off the baby's clothes all over the place. You just have to do whatever you can, however you get the kid on the potty, that's what you got to do, Very kind of Joni Mitchell-y singing here without being overly precious. And then the piano in the back, I think, is supposed to be a callback to the first piece in the Well-Tempered Clavier by Bach. You've heard it a million times. It sounds like a sort of weird version of that. No one is going to love you like I can. I don't like that word. Can? Shouldn't it be do? Power, ambiguity actually in that lyric, as I can. Whew. Then we get to the shadows. another mysterious song. It's all about like a woman who left a man. This has sort of an interesting gender transposition where she often sings from the position of a man thinking about a woman. So this is about like someone who's been left by a woman who is his altar. And I like this image because it's like, you know, the idea is that you put a woman on an altar, and in this song, this is a man who has put a woman on an altar. And listen, when you put a woman on an altar, on a pedestal, when you treat a woman like that, you're not complimenting her, you're denying her of her humanity. Okay? So if you ever think about a woman, if you're a man out there and you're in love with a woman and you think of her as a special, amazing thing that defies comprehension because of her beauty, intelligence, greatness, all that stuff, you are a sexist pig. Okay? It's not your fault. You're not trying to be a sexist pig. I've done this, by the way. That's why I'm so angry at you, because I was this guy when I was younger. You don't think you're being a sexist pig. Anything that denies the humanity of your partner is sexism. So I think that's what this is about. Because he refers to this altar, what will I pray to, where will I hide? So it's an amazing song about a guy who doesn't understand why a woman would leave this situation, and a woman should leave this situation, because if you're a woman and your husband or your partner adores you and idolizes you versus sees you as a partner, you've got really deep problems that you need to solve. Preachy time with Professor Skye, huh? Listen, a lot of you wanted me to review this album. What did you think I was going to do? Just talk about the Lydian chord structure? First, I'd have to learn what a Lydian chord structure is. There's not enough Adam Neely and Rick Beato in the world for me to understand what a Lydian... I just always think of Beetlejuice. I just think Winona Ryder playing guitar. Then we get to the interlude. Beautiful little sound. I guess it's a mellotron, like a busy signal. Reminds me a little bit of One is the Loneliest Number by Nilsson, but then it sounds like Philip Glass, and then it sounds more like Philip Glass with these little high synths that come in, and then they come in and invert. Very kind of peaceful, calm, Philip Glassy sound. Very enjoyable, nice bit. And then we get to Caroline, which is very Leonard Cohen-y singing and guitar, but not but beautiful and sweet. It's hard to describe. It's very Cohen-y without sounding like it's trying to sound Cohen-y. Like in the best sense of like mentality and songwriting ability, not like the affect. So I think I get this. I think this is the pivot point of the album. And I think that the interlude, and I think Caroline and what was the one right before, and The Shadows are the same story. So we have a guy who idolized this woman, and she was the greatest thing in the whole world and the most important thing. And then she left. And then we have the interlude. And then now we have Caroline, where it's the same person thinking of that woman. Caroline. We'll call her Caroline. And even though that's how much she meant to him, after the interlude and after time, she's now just a song that he had, la 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 la, something Caroline, a forgotten lover, an ember, a rock that bursts back into fire. But it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the song, he says, Laura in the voice of this person, Caroline, we are old now, I got married and I love my wife, I have kids, they're good and grown now, all in all I've been happy with my life. Like, that's the truth. That's the whole truth. Is that the kind of like, oh, you are the woman, you are the vision, you are the one I put on the altar, on the pedestal, all that stuff, that's fake. That's not real. That doesn't lead to a happy life. That leads to romantic horse hockey, okay? This right here is the truth. They're like, yeah, no, that's cool, all that kind of fun romantic stuff, but listen, I got married, I love my wife, I've got kids, and it's all good. It's all good. You can remember what it was like. You can remember your immortal beloveds that you had when you were younger, and they can be like little embers, and maybe you hear a song or hear a movie or watch the movie Immortal Beloved. Maybe you have something that reminds you of them. But it's not some great romantic big lost love. It's just like you were some goofy young person who was too horny. You know? Or you were looking to fix some mistake in your youth, or some kind of malformed sense of attachment from your childhood. And now you can just be old and married and love your wife and have kids and be happy with your life. It's awesome. It's all tied in together. Looking back, great kind of over a muted acoustic guitar. Okay, so this is a song which absolutely needs the context. Because I listened to it, I'm like, what is this? Like, she's 34 years old and she's talking about being old and bent over. I guess she can imagine what it's like to be old and looking back, and that way it's interesting. Like being a prisoner in a chair. I like that idea. But it's also weird because, like, she's young. But then it turns out it's actually a song that was written by her father, who was a singer-songwriter in the 70s. So it's his song that he wrote when he was young about being old, and now he's old and a grandfather. So the daughter is singing the song about her father, who is now a grandfather, the song that he wrote as a young man, imagining how he's going to be as an old man, and the middle-aged woman is singing the song that the young old man wrote about being an old man when he was young. Check my math. Did I get that right? I think I did. And that's a powerful idea. And it goes into the sense of the way that having children changes your relationship to time and changes your relationship to age. Because the good news is I got 4 kids, so I'm going to live forever. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And when I'm old and I'm looking back, this is the way I'm going to be. I'm going to be looking back. I'm going to be remembering these things. And I'm always going to be thinking about these loves in my life. And that's how I'm going to be. I'm going to be looking back. Then we get Lullaby, completely on the nose. Totally on the nose. I write lullabies to my children. I actually mostly write them stories. For my older kids, I wrote The 4 Princesses of Camino. It was a very long story about 4 clone troopers who fell in love with 4 Camino princesses on the planet of Camino. God, that was a great story. Great story. For my 2-year-old now, I have 2 stories that I tell her now. The Hungry Little Squirrel and the sloth who wanted an apple and needed to poop. I'm a good story writer, you know? And when you hold on to your kids at night, just this is what you want to say. Safe in my arms, asleep my angel, you're safe with me. It's beautiful. I will say, however, the melody here feels very similar to a song called Don't Forget Me by Nilsson off of the insanely How Is This Not Better album Pussycats, the one he did with John Lennon. Just listen to the song side by side, you'll hear it. Because Nilsson is a fascinating example of somebody who didn't do it. Somebody who did not break the cycle. He wrote about the cycle. He wrote about being a father. He wrote about how his father abandoned him. And he wrote this song about his father abandoning him and then him abandoning his son. But the thing is, he had a son and then he abandoned him. So it's the Nilsson thing is really sad to me. It's a very sad thing. I love Nilsson. I own 20 Nilsson albums. I don't know. I'm wearing a bathrobe right now because of Harry Nilsson. Yeah, I did go to the Nilsson documentary in a bathrobe. Like, I went to the premiere of the movie in Santa Barbara wearing a bathrobe. Anyways. So yeah, that is kind of interesting comparison there, I think. And I also think I looked up which Nilsson song it was that I was thinking of, and I found Don't Forget Me, and then I looked at it on YouTube, and there's all these comments, and in those comments is Lana Del Rey fans, because apparently Lana Del Rey shouted out that song. And I think we could sort of say that Laura Marling is evil Lana Del Rey. She's like the opposite. Like, Lana Del Rey is the person who realizes she can't break out of these patterns, so she shouldn't have kids. And that kind of like dark sadness just kind of keeps going, and she's probably doing the right thing. She's definitely doing the right thing. She doesn't want kids now, so she's not having kids now. Whereas on the other side, you have Laura Marling. Anyways. Patterns and Repeat. The next song, the title track, gentle guitar, still never boring, although the guitar does remind me just a little bit of Tears in Heaven. That's a song that Eric Clapton had. He had a ghostwriter for a song about his dead kid. Clapton, man. And this is just totally mysterious. Again, maybe even kind of Lana Del Rey's, because it talks about Calabasas. I don't know. To me, this feels very similar to Lana Del Rey's song, except it's completely opposite in its thematics. I have a hard time figuring out what is happening here, what these songs are about. Like, this is that, I believe, the patterns and repeat. That's where this album gets mysterious. This beautiful bit, I want you to know that I gave it up willingly, the maternal flame and these gorgeous strings, and that's the thing, you know, like you give it up. When you have kids, you give something up and you give it up willingly. Then we get to the Lullaby instrumental, which is just perfect because the song itself is a perfect little lullaby, and having it as an instrumental works great, and of course it helps to kind of bookend with the interlude. What an amazing album, and thank you for insisting. A lot of you insisted that I review this. Sometimes I get annoyed because people insist I review things just because Fantano gave it a good review. I like Fantano, but you know, sometimes it's, we don't have to talk about all the same things. So I was resistant. I resisted a long time. But in particular, one of my Patreons, Mark Wakely, really was bugging me. And he's a Patreon, and he's a frequent commentator, and you know, there's no guarantees that I'm going to review something because you ask me to, you know? I'll get to Gang of Four someday. Yeah, there's no guarantee. No guarantee. But if you are a frequent commenter and a Patreon, there's a bigger chance. I also asked my Patreons if they want to shout out. Bowden Braga said, please review this album. It's an absolutely beautiful album. It continues the progression of Marling's oeuvre absolutely wonderfully. Really beautiful how she went from an album fantasizing motherhood to this album, which accounts her motherhood as a fantastic experience. Did I mention at any point during this review that this is the first time I've ever listened to Laura Marling? I checked out that other album 4 years ago, and I was like, and I just moved on. I should probably revisit it. It's probably great. Zach, Dragoons, and of course, Mark Wakely. So thank him for that. And for Hoiberg, who went from Tottenham to Marseille. And he's one of the new additions to Marseille that is not a criminal. So I'll take it. All right, well, until next time, there's the camera. Oh, wait. Now I get to go be with my 2-year-old. Isn't that fun? You see why it's great? Oh, she's still in that direction, so I think I have a couple more minutes. Crows. There's the camera.